This is the continuation of the January 2019 edition of Automobile Magazine. The Road to Rennsport, a few hundred miles up the coast in a 911 GT3 Touring by Connor Golden. More than one attendee at Porsche's Rennsport reunion VI in late September remarked, only Porsche could pull this off. And by the end of the 4-day celebration of the Marquis Motorsports history, we agreed. Rennsport, held for the third time at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, is unlike any other automotive celebration we've encountered. A large part of the magic is thanks to a steady thrum of solidarity permeating the event. On one end, 918 Spider owners make a big show, parking in a lot filled with shiny GT2 RSs and Carrera GTs. In the paddock area, 959s had their own reserve parking tent, which at one point attracted 14 examples of the revolutionary mid-1980s supercar. Down on the other end, Porschephiles climbed out of their first-gen Boxers and raggedy 944s to peer into the cockpit of an 8-figure 718 RSK. Who would have thought such a concentration of unfathomably valuable cars and ultra-high-net-worth individuals could have evolved into such a massively successful gathering? Perhaps no one aside from racing hero and vintage racing organizer Brian Redman and Porsche's late public relations maestro Bob Carlson, the men who conceived Rennsport at the turn of the century and launched the first installment at Lime Rock Park in 2001. More so than perhaps any other major automotive event, Rennsport is deeply personal. There's something intangible about Porsche's zealotry. More than 15,000 showed up for that first edition at Lime Rock, and attendance has grown with each outing, parking at more than 81,000 over the 4 days this time around. A common thread among the people we spoke to, they didn't show up just to look at cool cars. Almost universally, it seems, there's a story behind the interest. My Rennsport experience begins with my father and ends with a road trip up the California coast in the 2018 911 GT3 Touring. A longtime mechanical engineer, my dad couldn't recall when he first caught the bug. He tells me of his standoffish, out-of-state grandfather who occasionally picked him up in a 1960s 911, only to have it sold out from under his nose when my great-grandfather died. He tells me of a time he temporarily swapped his Nissan Maxima for his brother's then new red 944, and of my great-uncle with a 356 in Germany. I finally convinced him to sell his Nissan Murano for a friend's 1981 911 Targa. 7 years later, I live in California, Dad's flying in, and a surprise awaits him. From the minute we purchased the Targa, it was a shared experience, and now it's my turn to pay it forward with a road trip in a new 911 GT3 Touring. Sure, we could have wormed our way behind the wheel of a GT2 RS, but the new for 2018 GT3 Touring seemed more apropos, a pure expression of Porsche's motorsport ethos. It's the same GT3 we know and love, only sans rear wing and Alcantara interior, replaced with a full leather interior kit and a subtle rear deck lid GT3 Touring badge. It's a GT3 for grown-ups, for the type of driver who's more inclined to plan a cross-country cruise than a rip down the main straight. Despite the promise of Rennsport and a road trip up the coast in what I told my dad would be a 718 Boxer S, spirits weren't sharp the morning of departure. The old man was fresh off the plane from a stint in Singapore, and there was no time for coffee or breakfast stops if we wanted to make the check-in time for Monterey. Bleary eyes cleared the minute the sapphire blue metallic coupe came into light. Eyes got even wider when the naturally aspirated 4-liter kicked over, rattling and thrumming in a way that's uniquely GT3. We aim to hit Monterey via coastal roads, primarily Pacific Coast Highway. It's one of those great American stretches along the same lines as Route 66 and the Blue Ridge Parkway. Stages through Malibu and Santa Barbara are picturesque, but the coastal scenery turns breathtaking in Big Sur, beginning just north of Sam Simon. Take it from my experience, that is very true. The grins wouldn't fade. Straight portions of PCH were conquered in a 9,000 RPM Royal. Tighter sections dispatched with the GT3's uncanny grip and symbiotic steering. When traffic slowed along the way, we developed a habit of waiting 30 seconds for the offending minivans and the light to gather distance before blasting off, the uproarious 6-cylinder scream deflecting from the rocky cliff walls. We pulled over a few times to change drivers and snap photos, some captured for our family Licia M3, inherited from the 356 driving uncle. Out there on the coast, ears ringing from a sprint through a tunnel was a special moment, one of many Rennsport stories created that week for thousands of people. This road to Laguna Seca set the stage for the entire trip, a perfect pre-chorus for what was to come. Better yet, we knew that once the event reaches Crescendo, we would point the GT3 Touring south and do it all over again. Living on the edges. There's room in the world for different kinds of outlaws. If there's a target-rich environment for the most extreme Stuttgart diehards, it's Rennsport Reunion, where the Porschedom ranged from the sacred Dr. Wolfgang Porsche himself to the profane, a cartoonishly widened RWB treatment of a 993 Targa Tiptronic. The cultural divide is as sociologically diverse as any in the automotive kingdom. Singer vehicle design, which has meticulously reworked more than 100 964 Series 911s, occupies a nebulous area between the ordained and the unorthodox. Not to be confused with some outlaws who paint deck lids matte black and call it a day. Singer triggers debates about how a modded, air-cooled Porsche manages to sell for upward of $600,000. Partial answer: when the nickel-plated trim alone runs 12 grand, things escalate quickly. But Singer's success also defies the odds. Hushed skeptics and predated newcomers like Gunther Works, earning it ultimate differentiator in this tumultuous space. Surveying both sides of this ideological fence, I drove from Los Angeles to Monterey and back in two distinct vehicles: Singer's 51st car and a stock 718 Boxster GTS. Prior Singer experiences were jaunts up and down Little Tahinga Canyon, a tantalizing mountain road near the company's HQ in Sun Valley, California. The cars felt just right, uncorking an aggressive but playful demeanor on the tight rhythm of switchbacks. But a full day of driving 400 miles of back roads between LA and Monterey delivered a deeper, more informative experience. With just more than 3,000 miles on the clock, this example has an all-in suspension setup with more aggressive compression and rebound settings compared to the Singers I sampled previously. It felt sharp to the point of sometimes being jarring, but it also proved a crisply effective solution for a few laps of Button Willow Raceway. It turns in aggressively, especially compared to original 911s, which have a tendency toward understeer. It's a curious sensation, this quick-turning, classic-looking car. That eagerness kept me on alert. Yet there was ease to piloting the Singer all day. The snug-fitting track seats were surprisingly amenable. Less accommodating, though, was the exhaust note, boomy at about 3,000 RPM. Singer's working on a new exhaust system with Borlo to fix the drone. Expect mass retrofits from owners. Pulling up to Rennsport after 400 miles of bug-splatting usage produced a satisfying afterglow. Despite its incremental imperfections, our Steed's carbon fiber departure from stock bodywork is so well executed and its mechanical underpinning so harmoniously unified that it feels like a small batch Uber Porsche. An ultimate expression of 911 no mainstream manufacturer could build because of the expense and man hours involved. Quote, it's anathema to some, messing around with an original Porsche and modifying it, Singer founder Rob Dickinson as Rennsport wound down. But then he added, quote, one of the things we're proudest is that our work doesn't necessarily alienate members of the grassroots Porsche community, of which I'm one, end quote. 10 years and 100 cars into this experiment, how does Singer fit within the Porsche fold? With the ambitious $1.8 million DLS model waiting in the wings and a new CEO in place, Dickinson anticipates more efficient manufacturing processes that could trim production time from 3 years to 12 or 18 months. More tellingly, he's bullish on the idea of old-school motoring at large. It's no surprise to me that passion for machinery as we go into the revolutionary age of uncertainty, autonomy, and electricity is only going to increase for the next 25 years, he said. Those oily internal combustion engines are going to continue to fascinate. As for the 718 Boxster GTS, my drive home was exactly what you'd expect from a production sports car built by one of the most highly regarded car makers. Swift, comfortable, and efficient in that eminently workday Porsche way. Without Singer's precociousness, it feels more usable and adaptable, with the flexibility to change suspension settings and exhaust notes at the push of a button. As technologically evolved as the modern car is, the Singer embodies a different kind of evolution. Mechanical exceptionalism honed to within a millimeter of its nostalgic life and obsession with fits, finishes, and modern materials masked as vintage. Although there's temptation to pin the Singer as the outlier, both represent the extremes that inspire fanaticism. Singer for its maniacal craftsmanship, Porsche for its unending pursuit of ultimate engineering, making each a sort of outlaw in its own right. Pocket exotic. The AutoZam AZ1 is the ultimate Japanese micro machine. If you ever find yourself behind the wheel of an AutoZam AZ1, be prepared to be the center of attention. At the gas station, traffic lights, parking lots, pretty much everywhere we roamed around California's scenic Monterey Bay area in the AZ1, the sight of the tiny, classic red Japanese curiosity prompted one simple question. What is it? The short answer, a pint-sized gull-wing door, plastic-bodied sports car with a mid-mounted sub-1 liter engine and a name straight out of a Japanese anime. Built exclusively for sale in Japan by the now defunct AutoZam, once a sub-brand of Mazda, from 92 to 94, the AZ1 was officially classified as a K-car, a vehicle engineered to meet the regulations of Japan's smallest street-legal segment. Generally speaking, K-cars are uninspiring transportation modules. Thanks to restrictions on overall size, engine capacity, and horsepower, they're city cars through and through, built to serve a starkly utilitarian purpose. On the flip side, they're affordably priced and designed to sip fuel. They're also taxed at a lower rate than larger cars and cost less to register and insure. Although the AZ1 met the K-car mandate, it fell squarely outside the boring box thanks to a unique blend of sport and style. In the late 1980s, Japanese automakers, reveling in a booming domestic economy and benefiting from exploding sales, started to develop K-sized cars that were actually fun to drive. The AZ1 was born out of this mindset and owes its existence in large part to the design of two mid-engine Suzuki concepts from 1985 to 87, the RS1 and the RS3. As the story goes, Suzuki eventually abandoned work on the more radical RS concepts in order to focus on the Cappuccino, a traditional front-engine convertible sporty K-car that fell in line with the similar Honda Beat. Q Mazda, which took over development of the project Toshihiko Hirai as the product chief. Toshihiko-san also held the same position on the first-generation Miata program. By 1989, Hirai had three new AZ550 concepts ready for that year's Tokyo Auto Show. Type A looked much like the AZ1 production car does, and Type B was slightly less dramatic with conventional doors. Type C looked like a mini Group C sports prototype racer, right down to its finned BBS alloys. In the end, Mazda found the Type A most likely to return a profit. Roughly 3 years later, in September of '92, the AutoZam AZ1 went on sale. At just shy of 11 feet long, the two-seater features short overhangs, chunky and straight-edge plastic body panels, and styling cues gratuitously borrowed from cars that could almost literally eat the AZ1 for lunch. Its side strakes and high-profile wing harken to the Ferrari Testarossa and the F40 respectively. The front end, with its carved-out headlight pockets and hood scoop, mimics the Ford RS200 that terrorized the Group B rallies car scene in the late 1980s. The side windows have only a small opening section, which is similar in scope to another 80s dream machine, the Lamborghini Countach. The AZ1 charged into Japanese roads powered by a Suzuki-sourced transverse-mounted twin-cam 12-valve 657cc turbocharged 3-cylinder, making 63 horsepower and 63 pound-feet of torque paired with a 5-speed manual. Rolling on an 88-inch wheelbase, it also featured an independent strut suspension and 4-wheel disc brakes. Unfortunately, even for a K car, the AZ1 proved too small and expensive for many, costing the equivalent of roughly $12,000 at the time for a car that struggled to comfortably fit two people. A Japanese recession did the rest, helping to usher the little sports coupe out of production by the end of '94. The unintended side effect was that the AZ1 is now perhaps the rarest K-class sports car of its era. Although it stickered for less than a new Yunos Roadster, the Japanese market Miata, the AZ1 was priced higher than the Beat and Cappuccino. Just 4,392 units were built in all, plus another 531 badge-engineered Suzuki car models, versus 28,000 Cappuccinos and more than 33,000 Beats. The '92 AZ1 we've been staring at is owned by Mark Brinker, a Texas-based surgeon and enthusiast of interesting cars. His collection includes several rare Japanese classics and the one-off Herb Adams Pontiac Vivint concept. Brinker's AZ1 is in the even rarer Mazda Speed version, which is reportedly one of as a few of 100 produced. It includes a factory body kit with a unique hood, front chin spoiler, and rear wing, sport-tuned struts and springs, front and rear strut bars, a mechanical limit-slip differential, stainless steel sport muffler, and unique alloy wheels wearing narrow 165 width tires were also part of the package. Inside, the AZ1's white gauge faces with red needles look sporty, as does its 3-spoke leather-covered steering wheel, another Mazda Speed option. The interior door handles are borrowed from the Miata, and the spare tire is stashed behind the fixed-back, high-bolstered seats, akin to the mid-engine Fiat X1/9. There's very little in the cabin to distract from the task of driving. Just simple climate and audio system controls on the center stack, all labeled in Japanese, of course, and not a whole lot else. The floor mats were embroidered with the AZ1 exciting micro coupe. Very Japanese. Getting into the little Zam can be a challenge, though it gets easier with practice. Best to start by putting your left leg into the car first. Remember, this is a right-hand drive vehicle. Then slide it carefully underneath the steering wheel as you scoot your butt into the driver's seat. Then it's just a matter of contouring your right leg enough to get it inside the car before you pull the door strap to close the gullwing door. It's a good idea to duck down slightly as you do if you're approaching the 6-foot range. Once in, you'll probably find that your left leg is somewhat pinched between the center console and the steering wheel and that you have limited mobility. With your hands on the steering wheel, your left leg is blocking the space your left hand would use while making a left turn. The pedal box is also quite tight, but a pair of relatively narrow size 11 shoes didn't find it too much of an issue. Turn the key and the AZ1's turbocharged 3-banger fires up with a fairly mundane exhaust note that's a bit of a letdown initially. But once you slot the shift lever into first, take up the clutch, and give the ZAM some throttle, the sound intensifies as the revs pick up. By 3,000 RPM, the engine starts to come on cam, and by 6,000 RPM, it's feeling like a real sports car. There's still another 3,000 RPM to go before you hit the 9,000 red line. And those final revs per minute sound outstanding, almost demanding that we let the revs soar before upshifting. The little sub-liter engine sings its turbocharged heart out with a mechanical noise that sounds almost exotic yet all on its own. It's not what you'd call quick. 0 to 60 miles an hour takes about 10 seconds, even given the vehicle's scant 1590 pound curb weight. But the sensation of speed is such a small analog car, it's fantastic. The non-assisted steering is heavy when navigating parking lots, but it lightens up nicely at speed while retaining plenty of feel and precision. Similar to the more modern Alfa Romeo 4C, when you move the wheel just off center, the car immediately starts to change direction. You can never relax, and it's part of the reason the ZAM feels like such a driver's car. Toss it into a corner and it will roll only slightly on its Mazda Speed Sport suspension before taking a set and holding its line through. There's just so little weight, so little mass, it's almost as if you're wheeling a 1-to-1 scale version of a 1980s Micro Machines toy car. Would you like one? Now that the feds allow you to lawfully import any car that's at least 25 years old, it opens the door to bringing an AZ1 of your own to the States. But be sure to check your state and local statutes before you drop as much as 17 grand on a great example. Get one, and you'll be all but assured to have the only AutoZam AZ1 at your local Cars and Coffee. Just be ready to answer the inevitable, what is it, question for the duration of the show. Auction section. These are highlights from the first ever Japanese Automotive Invitational. Think you know your Japanese automotive history? Although we're betting most of you could ID a Mazda RX-7, a Datsun 240Z, or even an R34 Skyline GTR, did you know what an AutoZam AZ1 was before you heard our story? The AZ1 and some 43 other Japanese classics were on display as part of the Motor Trend Group's inaugural Japanese Automotive Invitational, held during this past year's Monterey Car Week. Put on in partnership with Infiniti, JAI offered a chance to get up close and personal with numerous models not sold in the US, along with some of the most loved cars Japan exported to our shores. Plans are already underway for the 2019 JAI, so if you're putting around Pebble Beach next year during Car Week, wander over. Not only is it a fun event, but it's also one of the few shows that doesn't charge admission. Here's a quick look at a couple of our favorite Japanese gems that were invited to the inaugural event. The 1978 Dome Zero. No, an obscure Gandini design Italian concept didn't sneak into the grounds. This is a Japanese design through and through, penned by Minoru Hayashi for the 1978 Geneva Auto Show. Hayashi planned a run of both production and race cars based on this mid-engine concept with a 2.8-liter Nissan Inline-6, but his plans unfortunately never came to fruition. The 1972 Nissan Skyline GTR, lovingly referred to as Hakosuka by its legions of fans, Haku meaning box in Japanese, and Suka being a shortening of Suka Rain or Skyline. The first generation Skyline GTR is powered by a 2-liter straight 6 making about 160 horsepower. It was competitive with the Porsche 911 of the same period, and today's R35 GTR is still a Japanese Porsche fighter. The 1967 Toyota Sports 800. Before the 2000 GT, there was a Sports 800, Toyota's first sports car. Slightly more than 3,100 of these tiny 44 horsepower 0.79 liter coupes were built between 1965 and 69, and they are only sold new in Japan. The Sports 800 has a removable roof panel, a sort of target top before Porsche coined the term. At slightly less than 1,300 pounds, the Sports 800 is lively to drive, though not exactly what you'd call quick. The 1970 Isuzu 117 Coupe. One of the prettier designs from Japan in this era, the Isuzu 117 is a front-engine, rear-wheel drive sports coupe with styling by Italian design guru Giorgetto Gugario. The 117 was first produced in 1968, and by 1970, the 1.6-liter twin-cam 4-cylinder engine had dumped its carburetor for then state-of-the-art Bosch fuel injection. The 1964 Datsun 1500 Roadster. Datsun's answer to the popular British MGB Roadster was the 1500. True to its name, the 1500 had a front-mounted 1.5-liter 4-cylinder engine and thanks to a second SU carburetor to the MGB's 1, the 1964 model got a bump in power to 85 horsepower. The 1500 seated 3 with the side-facing rear jump seat. Period Correct puts its spin on heritage product. The automotive-themed apparel space is a tough one to occupy. Good luck finding something that isn't tacky, uninspired, or poorly made. Even if it manages to be made well, it's usually a graphic tee you shouldn't wear outside of a Cars and Coffee. California-based Period Correct's clothing and accessories, however, have equal footing in fashion and automotive. Most of what's in its small Costa Mesa showroom channels the aesthetics of the 60s through the 80s, repackaged into modern apparel. Jackets, t-shirts, and long-sleeve shirts with minimalist graphics that appear ripped straight from old-school paddocks. The PC name also finds its way onto special edition jerry cans, toolboxes, sunglasses, lapel pins, key trays, and earplug boxes. Each new season brings a different era of racing or automotive iconography, ranging from Group B to BMW's M division, overlaid on a dark color palette. The most recent release is inspired by the McLaren F1. PC worked directly with McLaren for source material and schematics. The company's showroom is picture perfect, a modern space occupied by product and tasteful decoration. In another time, this was the long-time location of Parts Obsolete, one of the first shops for hard-to-find Porsche parts. For founder and creative director Brian Calvero, PC is a reflection of his personal tastes. Quote, "I've been into cars since I was 4. I collected all the 118 and 143 scale models and filled my room with Formula One posters." End quote. Calvero's primary background is in apparel sales, previously managing several brands before launching PC. Rather than adhering to historical accuracy, PC implements more modern interpretations of classic design. Quote, "We get comments all the time like, oh, this color or graphic isn't period correct for this or that," he acknowledges. "Does that mean I only like cars and design that are completely period correct? No. I've got hot rods, I've got Japanese wheels on a French car. Period correct is a lifestyle. If you love motorsports and you love classic cars, racing, vintage watches, modernism, and architecture, this is for you." End quote. And the final article of the January 2019 Automobile Mag is an interview with Jacques Villeneuve. He's a Formula One kart champion and Indy 500 winner. Jacques Villeneuve has been a motoring racing fixture for so long it's hard to believe he's only 47. He won the 1995 Indy 500 and that season's kart championship. He then moved to Formula One with the Williams team, winning 4 races and losing the 96 title to teammate Damon Hill in the season finale. He came back to win the F1 championship in 97, edging out Michael Schumacher. After he left F1 in 2006, Villeneuve competed in a variety of other series, including NASCAR, V8 Supercars, and in 2014, the FIA World Rallycross. He now lives in Europe and works as a TV commentator for F1 race broadcasts. We spoke to him in his home region of Quebec, Canada, during the America's Rallycross Grand Prix of Trois-Rivières, where he was the guest race driver for the Subaru Rally Team USA. Question: this is the first time you've raced a rallycross car since your season with Peugeot 4 years ago. Are you having fun? Answer: yeah, I am now. Part of the fun is getting to work as a team. Driving is just one aspect of it. It's fun to figure things out and make progress from there. Question: how long does it take to get the feel back for a race car? Answer: as far as just driving, it only takes a couple of laps. It's easy to get too excited and overdrive the car. It gets better as the race weekend progresses, but you're always lagging a bit behind the drivers who do race in the series full time. Question: are you happy doing what you're doing now? Answer: the TV work, which has me flying to every Formula One race, keeps me busy, but I'd rather be back behind the steering wheel. I didn't have anything planned after this race weekend, but if the phone rings... Question: is the state of Formula One better now compared to when you were racing? Worse? About the same? Answer: it's different, definitely. Question: do you wish you were racing in F1 now instead of during your era? Answer: no. My era was better because there was still some grit. It still had human. But it was safe enough that if you got in the car, you didn't feel like you were going to kill yourself. It was a good in-between, and it was less politically correct. Not like now when nobody says anything. And now most drivers are owned by teams, and the drivers get moved around like chess pieces. It's more like a franchise, and I find that a bit strange. And because of that, I think there's less talent out there. Established drivers are being moved aside for younger drivers. Question: would you agree that it seems the racing was better when you were competing? That there were more than just a handful of teams that had a chance to win? Answer: no, that's not true. I didn't know why people think that. The racing now has never been as good as it is, based on how close the grid is. Question: Certainly technology has improved safety, but has it made F1 less fun to watch? Answer: overtaking is different. There used to be battles, but now it's more of a position swap. Drivers rely on opening up the rear wing using the drag reduction system, which allows a driver to adjust the wing and pass someone like you do on the highway. There's no battle. Fans didn't come back to a race and think, "Oh, that move was just amazing." You just don't get those moments that you will remember for the rest of your life. Question: true, but F1 seems healthy enough for the moment. Answer: the sport is getting bigger and bigger. That's not an issue. But what is lacking for the fans is that there aren't as many heroes. It's not a bunch of gladiators out there anymore. Question: a potential move to electric power is one of the most talked about topics in the World Rallycross and America Rallycross paddocks. Good idea? Answer: nobody wants to see electric racing. The truth is, in the F1 paddock, nobody even knows when the Formula E races are on. Question: still, manufacturers are lining up to race in Formula E, and there's a lot of interest from companies like Ford in seeing electric rallycross racing. Answer: I don't understand why they're pushing it so much. I think it's a niche thing. The diehard fans are the only ones who really keep up with it. I did a couple of races in Formula E, and I was happy to do them because the technology was interesting. You have power, you step on the gas, well, I probably shouldn't say gas, you step on the pedal, and you go somewhere. Fine, but ultimately, I don't know. Question: do you keep up with racing in the US? Answer: when I can, but living in Europe it's difficult. The Indy cars look fast because the cars are difficult to drive and the racing is good. I'm not that interested in NASCAR because so many of the drivers I watch are not there anymore. I don't know who the drivers are racing now. Question: if the opportunity arises, and we understand it might next year, would you like to do some more rallycross racing? Answer: definitely. I love this kind of racing. I love the rubbing. That's one reason. I really enjoyed the little NASCAR racing I got to do. With Rallycross, I get the opportunity to make some contact. End of the magazine. We'll see you on the next one.